It took Kyle Larson just 4 races to win with Hendrick Motorsports. It took Matt Kenseth just 3 races to win with Joe Gibbs Racing. It took Kevin Harvick just 2 races to win with Stewart-Haas Racing. And Kyle Busch, it also just took him 2 races. And in just his second race with Richard Childress Racing, he has won. He wins the final Auto Club race, and in pretty nice fashion. He was one of the top cars all day long. He didn't lead the most laps. He didn't sweep the stages or anything, but he was probably a top 3, top 5 car all day long. Remember last year in this race, Tyler Reddick, he was driving the 8 car. He led over 90 laps. He swept the stages, and he got caught up in the late wreck. Didn't win the race. Well, this year, there was another car that was dominant, Ross Chastain. We'll talk about him later. But Kyle Busch had one of the top cars, was able to be up close late. Really good pit stop, really good last run. Was able to run away late. He wins at Auto Club. We talked about over the offseason how sometimes we see drivers make big moves. They go from a team that they've been with for a while and they go to another team. Well, this was the big driver going from the team he's been with for a while to a team he has not raced for before. And it's been pretty successful so far. He finished 3rd in the Busch Clash, was leading near the end of the Daytona 500 before a late race caution. At Auto Club, he has won. So as I said, we've seen examples of this in the past, as some of the examples I listed. Matt Kenseth going to Joe Gibbs Racing. That first year, he had 6 or 7 wins. He was competing for the championship, fell just short. Kevin Harvick in his first year with Stewart-Haas Racing, he won the championship, won 6 or 7 races. Kyle Larson in his first year with Hendrick Motorsports, 10 wins in a championship. So sometimes a refreshing a new environment can be good for a race car driver. Kyle Busch had been at Joe Gibbs Racing for 15 years. He had won tons of cup races for him. He's won championships for him. And him leaving was very unexpected. At the beginning of the season, no one saw it coming. Even up until April, no one saw it coming. But it started to all kind of fall apart over the summer, June, July, and then August is finally when the reports were coming out that they weren't going to stay together. And then September, it's announced that Kyle Busch is going to RCR. And it was a big shock. And RCR was not where people thought he was going to go. You know, Richard Childress and Kyle Busch, they have their history together. And, you know, a lot of people question, would this work? RCR, they've had a rough decade or so. But last year, they really picked it up. Reddick had 3 wins. Austin Dillon had a win. They led more laps probably than they've led in a long time. And Kyle Busch, a 2-time champion, coming into this race car that had, once again, 3 wins last year, is a big deal. It seemed like they were looking to take that next step forward, not just to make the playoffs, compete for wins, but to potentially compete for championships. And very early on in the season, once again, very early on in the season, they are showing signs of that. You know, last week if they had won the Daytona 500, that would have been great. That's the biggest race. That's the race you want to win. But at the same time, it's a restrictor plate race. Those can be crapshoots for the most part. But after that, usually that first race after Daytona, which has been Fontana the last couple of years, that's usually the first sign that we get of who's going to be pretty good, who's going to be up front, who's going to be fighting for the wins, who's going to be fast. And today, Kyle Busch showed it. Obviously, once again, it has only been 2 races this year, but Kyle Busch probably led 30-something laps. He ran up in the top 3 to 5 a good chunk of the day. He had to overcome a speeding penalty early on in this race. This is a big win for Kyle Busch. He hasn't won on a pavement track, I think they said in 500 or 600 days or 50-something starts. There were a lot of different numbers they threw out there. But Kyle Busch, his last win was at Bristol Dirt last year, and that's because the leaders wrecked each other. It's been a while since he has won a race because basically he was one of the best cars, to say it blatantly. Kyle Busch has still been, he's been solid. He's had his races where he's been running up front, but things happen. You look at some of the examples last year, like Las Vegas, the race that we're about to go to, he honestly could have been the defending winner of that race. He was battling his teammate Martin Truex Jr. for the lead. He was the lead car in that battle. 2.5 to go. Eric Jones wrecks on the front stretch, and there's a caution. Pit strategy strikes, and Alex Bowman wins. I mean, he's had some pretty bad luck. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's also, you know, had some, the 18 team had their rough spots at times, but Kyle Busch, the 18 team, they had their rough patches, and they also had, well, some bad luck, as I just listed Las Vegas. Darlington, they were leading with 20 to go, and the engine blew under caution. Bristol, they had a mechanical problem. So Kyle Busch, he has been up front. He just hasn't had the luck. Change the scenery, and suddenly it looks like the luck's on his side. Now, I'm not saying this win is pure luck. This was skill. The 8 car was really fast today. Kyle Busch drove a great race. He had to battle back from pit road penalty. Kyle Busch did a great job today. And so far, this Richard Childress, Kyle Busch pairing, it's working out extremely well. Lots of laps led, a win. Kyle Busch now, 61 wins on his career. He moves ahead of Kevin Harvick. They were tied, but at one point they were battling for the lead. We'll talk about that later as well. But yeah, really good race for Kyle Busch. Not much else you can say. It's time to celebrate Kyle Busch wins as we always do with M&M's. Oh, wait. They don't sponsor him anymore. Goodbye, M&M's. I can't eat you when Kyle Busch wins anymore. Sad. Anyways, let's talk about the results of this race, and we will, of course, talk about how this was the last race at Fontana. We'll talk about that mainly after the results of the race, the last Fontana race. Auto Club Speedway, it has been around since 1997. The last winner is Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch got his first career win at Auto Club, actually, with Hendrick Motorsports. He won there 3 times with Joe Gibbs Racing in 2013, 2014, and 2019. And in his first attempt with Richard Childress Racing, he is also the winner. So every team he's raced for in the Cup Series, he's won at Auto Club with. So that's pretty impressive. Kyle Busch also makes history, the most consecutive seasons with a win. Him and Richard Petty were tied at 18 straight seasons with at least one victory. Kyle Busch, this is his 19th straight year with a victory. That's insane. That is crazy. Kyle Busch, we've been saying that he's kind of had down years the past 2 or 3 years. Even though he's had down years, he's still had a win or two. That's pretty dang impressive that even in your bad years, you're still winning. Kyle Busch, still doing pretty good. And of course, the new team, the new car, the new manufacturer for him, he wins in just his second start. Very impressive for him. Very impressive day for Richard Childress Racing. So far, this pairing, it's working out pretty well. Second place, Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott trying to redeem after last year. If you remember, he was racing with his teammate Kyle Larson late, made some contact with the wall after Larson kind of forced him into it, and he ends up finishing 30-something. I can't remember, but he was looking for some redemption for that. Didn't quite get it, but a second place run, a good bounce back after the crash in the Daytona 500. Solid run for him. I don't think he led it all, but he was top 5 for probably the last quarter, third of the race. So they had a good chunk of speed, and they showed it at the end there. So good solid run for Chase Elliott. That's all I got to say on that. Ross Chastain finishes third. He probably had the best car today. Led, I want to say 86 laps. I think that's what it was. I could be wrong. It was about 90 laps, about what Reddick did last year. He swept the stages. He at one point had like an 8-second lead. I mean, Ross Chastain had the best car for the majority of the day, but that last stint, Kyle Busch caught up to him. That last restart, he was right there with Chastain. Chastain couldn't hold him off. Kyle Busch passed him right before the last green flag pit stops. Chastain had a great pit entrance. They were side by side coming onto pit road. Kyle Busch maintained the lead exiting pit road, and Kyle Busch ran away with this one. That last 30-lap stint under green, Ross Chastain that wasn't the same car that he had the rest of the race. It wasn't bad or anything. It wasn't horrendous. He still finished third, but it wasn't that dominant car that could run out to the 6 to 8 second lead. It wasn't the car that could pass anyone for the lead. He fell back. He entered the pit strategy second. He left pit road second. He got passed by Chase Elliott, finished third. So a really good race for Chastain, but at the same time, there's probably got to be a little bit of, man, what could have been for them. Really dominant car, it seemed like, but unfortunately just not enough. Chastain's teammate, Daniel Suarez, fourth. Remember, Suarez was also in position to win this thing last year. Was leading with 3 to go, I believe, and he decided to take the bottom, entering 3. Larson took the top. Larson was able to carry that momentum to pass him. Suarez finishes fourth. This seems to be his type of racetrack. Unfortunately, they're blowing up this racetrack. But Still, really good run for Suarez. He was top 5, top 10 most of the day. Really good run for him. He looked pretty good. Was fighting with Denny Hamlin for a while there. Had some good battles with Joey Logano, Chase Elliott. So a really good run for Suarez. A promising start to the season, not just for him, but all of Trackhouse. Double top 5. Kevin Harvick, what a day. Obviously, regardless of the future of Auto Club, this was going to be Kevin Harvick's last start there. It's his last season, so he's retiring, obviously. It's his home track. He grew up in Bakersfield, which is about 150 miles away. But Harvick, he's had a couple wins at Auto Club. He's had some really good runs there. He had a really good car today. He led some laps. He was in the top 5 for a good chunk of the race. He was on the inside front row, I think, on one of the late restarts with about 50 to go, I want to say. And it went about as wrong as you could think. He went from 2nd to 14th in the matter of probably a lap and a half. Just nothing worked out, no moves made right. He made his way up to about 7th or 8th, and then on that last cycle after the pits, he rallies back for a 5th. So a top 5 finish, really good for him. A promising sign in terms of speed, but kind of like Chastain, what could have been? You know, really strong car. They had the track position, just one bad restart kind of set them back. But still, a top 5. 6th place, Denny Hamlin, solid top 10 run for him. He was up in the top 5 at times. He was battling with Joey Logano at one point for the lead. And I was like, wow, we're about to get the 2013 finish again. Hopefully no injuries this time. But he had led some laps there. He was up front. Ends up 6th. Brad Keselowski. So this first race after Daytona, this is the sign of cars who we see. This is really our first sign of what the year's going to be like. We're going to see who's up front. We're going to see who's the contenders. There were some cars that impressed today. And one of those cars was Brad Keselowski and also Chris Buescher. So RFK as a whole. Brad Keselowski struggled last year. In this race alone last year, I think he spun out 4 times. Like, it was a horrific year for Keselowski outside of Martinsville. And I think Bristol, he also ran really good in the super speedways. Last year was probably a career worst for Brad Keselowski. He finished outside of the top 20 in points. Didn't win. It was a rough year for Brad Keselowski. His teammate Chris Buescher had a win, had some really good runs, whereas, once again, Keselowski, not so good. Opens up the year with a 7th at the first non-super speedway race. And it wasn't just a fluke. He was running in the top 10 for a good chunk of the day. RFK as a whole was right there, either in the top 10 or just outside. Could this be the step up they were looking for? Brad Keselowski, 7th. 8th place, Alex Bowman led the opening couple of laps and was back half of the top 10 most of the day. Austin Dillon, 9th, double top 10 for RCR. Austin Dillon, one of the top recruiters for Kyle Busch, of course, and watched his teammate win today. Good job, Austin Dillon. 10th place, Joey Logano had one of the best cars all day, but 10th for him. Don't really know what happened there on that last run. He was up there in the top 5. I think he might have brushed the wall, I want to say. Can't remember. 11th, Martin Truex Jr. What a day for him. Had what seemed to be like a really good car at the beginning of the day. I think he had a speeding penalty. Then he came back from it. And then they had a tire penalty. After he left pit road, the tire went flying off the car. The rule used to be your crew chief gets suspended for 4 races. But the new rule is, in race, you get a 2-lap penalty. And then 2 members of your team are suspended for 2 races. And so Truex had to serve that penalty. He was 2 laps down early in this one, but he rallies back for an 11th place finish. 12th place, fresh off of his Daytona 500 victory, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Solid run for him. He was in the top 10 at times today. He was in the top 15 probably the majority of the day. A really good start for JTG Doherty. Obviously, winning the Daytona 500 is a big deal. But to have a top 15 at a non-super speedway, that's pretty good. I'd say he should be happy with that. 13th, Chris Buescher. As I said, RFK either in the top 10 or just outside. Chris Buescher just outside of the top 10 with a 13th place finish. Really good day for him and all of RFK. 14th, Corey LaJoie. As I said, there were some guys that really impressed me today. He was one of them. Corey LaJoie, top 15 on pure speed in Aspire Motorsports car. They're usually back markers. The only time they compete is super speedways. Corey LaJoie was top 15, top 20 at worst today. He got stage points on pure speed. No late stage caution, then he just stayed out and lucked into points. He legitimately got stage points today. It was impressive. If we had to do like a driver of the day category on this thing, I honestly would put Corey LaJoie as the driver of the day. Wildly impressive today. 14th LaJoie, 15th Harrison Burton, 16th Ty Gibbs, Todd Gillen 17th, 18th Michael McDowell, 19th Eric Jones, 20th Chase Briscoe. Briscoe was like dead last at one point in this race and was getting lapped. I don't know how he finished on the lead lap. I don't know how he finished in the top 20. Good job, I think. 21st, Justin Haley. 22nd, Noah Gregson. 23rd, J.J. Haley. Back to Gregson. He actually led a couple laps. First laps led for him. 24th, B.J. McLeod. Get loud for McLeod. 25th, William Byron. Yeah, he had a top 10 car, and he had a flat tire, I believe, late in this race with like 10 to go. Came onto pit road, fixed that tire up, and then had a speeding penalty. So he kind of threw the day away there. I mean, really, it was the tire, but then he kind of shot himself in the foot after that. 25th for him, bad starts of the year. 26th, Ryan Blaney. He was leading laps early on in this one. Got involved in a wreck that we will now talk about. Dover 2016. Jimmy Johnson forgets, well, he didn't forget, his gearbox forgot how to work, and he stacks up on the restart. Everyone wrecks. Imagine that, but like halfway through the field. And it wasn't a gearbox. Everyone was stacking up on the restart because it's a longer restart zone, and everyone starts bumping really hard and crashing. And, you know, about 8 rows back, everyone starts spinning, crashing, going into the grass, into the wall. Eric Almirola was actually airborne a little bit. And, yeah, Ryan Blaney was back there, and he got involved in this. He ends up 26th. Cody Ware, 27th. Austin Cindric, 28th. He had issues. Him, Chris Buescher, and someone else made contact. Maybe it was LaJoie. LaJoie got in a couple incidents today. Despite being my driver today, he had a couple incidents. Cindric hit the wall. Probably broke a toe link. 28th. 29th, Kyle Larson. Oh, my. Larson, they're like Ferrari in F1. Speaking of F1, my F1 season preview and predictions coming up this week. I don't know what day yet, so look out for the community post for that. But Larson had like 4 or 5 engine failures last year. The rest of Hendrick Motorsports might have had 2 or 3 combined. Why is it only the 5? What are they doing wrong? They had those engine failures. They had one like 10 laps into this one. Only finished 15 laps down, but the fact that that's happening a lot for them and them only is a bit concerning. Don't know what's going on there. 30th, Bubba Wallace. He had a top 15 car. Unfortunately for him, a mechanical failure of some sort. I can't remember what specific part it was, but something on the car broke. Some type of leak. They were smoking, and he had to park it. So 30th for him. 31st, Ty Dillon. 32nd, Christopher Bell was involved in that stack-up wreck. Same with Ryan Preece, Tyler Reddick, Eric Almirola, and then there was AJ Allmendinger in a single-car wreck. Everyone was getting shuffled up off of 2. It was like 4 wide, 3 wide maybe, and LaJoie kind of got forced down. LaJoie kind of hit Allmendinger on the front, and he went spinning into the inside wall, crashed, day done. Those are the results from the final Auto Club race. So Auto Club, a tribute. Honestly, today was a great race. It wasn't as like chaotic as last year's, where we had like Daniel Suarez, Eric Jones, and Austin Dillon fighting Kyle Larson for the win. But it was still a solid race. We had a lot of exciting passing. We had a lot of exciting battles. We had tons of battles for the lead, even though there was one guy that kind of dominated at times. We still had good battles for the lead. Joey Logano versus Denny Hamlin, Chastain versus Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick versus Kyle Busch. I mean, we had some solid battles for the lead today. It was a really good race. I'd give it like a 9 out of 10. It was that good of a race. I really enjoyed today's race. It is sad, though, that we are losing this track. As good as the race was this year and last year, it is sad that we're losing this track. It's had a lot of great moments. Last year's race was tremendous. This year's race was pretty good as well. We look at some of the iconic moments of the track. Kevin Harvick versus Jimmy Johnson for the win in 2011. Kyle Busch versus Kyle Larson for the win in 2014. Of course, that iconic Denny Hamlin versus Joey Logano. They crash. Kyle Busch steals the win. that's probably the top moment in Auto Club's history. But, you know, so many iconic moments. Jimmy Johnson winning in the Superman car. So many moments in this track's history, and it comes to a close today. We're all going to miss this track. That's the fact of the matter. There's going to be a future for the track, though. It's going to be a short track. It's going to be very different, obviously, in terms of racing, look, fans, cars, whatever it may be. It's going to be a very different look. We're going to miss this track. It was due for a repave, though, so they had to do something about it. It was either repave or reconfigure or turn into something new. They turned it into something new. We're going to miss Auto Club. There's no question about it. It was a great racetrack for a quarter of a century. We say goodbye now. So Auto Club Speedway, it was fun. We're going to miss you. The 2 mile track, great memories. But it'll always be on NASCAR 2011, the game on the Wii. And I will be able to play it next time I get on my Wii. NASCAR 2011, the game. Auto Club. Auto Club Speedway. We say goodbye. Kyle Busch wins the last race at Auto Club. It started with Jeff Gordon winning the first one back in 1997. It ends with Kyle Busch winning it in 2023. We'll see what the future of the track holds. We'll see what the future of NASCAR holds. Next week, we are at Las Vegas. Vegas, baby. I'll talk about that one later in the week. But, yeah, we'll see how the rest of the season goes. Kyle Busch and Ricky Stenhouse Jr., your 2 winners so far this year. It's been a fun season so far. We'll see how it goes onward. But Kyle Busch and RCR, so far, so good. Thank you for watching this video. Like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. You guys know about that. And let me know what your thoughts are on Kyle Busch winning in just his second start for RCR. What a fun day.